Hey, Hannah here with Delta. Today I'm installing a Delta bar prep faucet, which is a little bit smaller than a kitchen faucet. They're great additions to your kitchen if you have a second sink. This is a Trinsic model, but Delta offers lots of coordinating bar prep and kitchen faucets to match just about any style or finish. Now, if you're looking for help with installing a kitchen faucet, we have a separate video for that, so check that out. Okay, so first some information. Our sink is a single hole sink, so we don't need an escutcheon, but if your sink is a 3-hole, then you'll need the escutcheon, which you can purchase separately if it's not included with your faucet. This install video should work for most of the single handle bar prep faucets that Delta offers, and you really only need a couple of adjustable wrenches for this install. It's really easy. You may also want some safety glasses, a flashlight in case it's dark underneath your sink, and we are going to flush the lines, so go ahead and get a small bucket and towel for any water cleanup. Okay, so grab those tools and supplies and let's get started. Now the first step in our install is to drop our faucet into our sink deck. If you have a single hole sink configuration like I do, you'll want to use the included flange and gasket. You want to make sure that this gasket didn't fall out of your flange. We're just going to set this over the hole in our sink deck. We're going to take our faucet, and these copper tubes, they will flex, but you want to make sure they don't break as you're setting this in. Now we're going to use our Delta logo to make sure that everything is centered and straight. That looks good. Now we're ready to tighten from underneath. Pro tip here, I can actually turn our spout to the side to counterbalance the faucet so it doesn't tip over while I go underneath and tighten it up. Now it's time to tighten our faucet down to our sink deck using our mounting bracket and our nut. Now you'll notice that the nut has two sides. There's a threaded end and a smooth end. If you have a thin sink like I do, pro tip here is to point the threaded end down. That way you don't have to thread the nut as far up on the mounting stud as you would normally have to. Now this mounting bracket has words that say this side to deck. You want to make sure that points up. And this center hole is for the mounting stud, and these two outer holes are for the copper tubes. So just make sure that's oriented correctly when you install it. So first I'm just going to hand tighten the nut. Okay, now I'm going to check up top to make sure it's still centered. All right, everything looks good, so now I'm just going to tighten it down with a wrench. And you don't want to over tighten this, you just want to make sure it's nice and snug. Now with any new faucet install, I like to replace our supply lines. I'm going to start with the cold, going to connect it, then I'll flush the line to make sure that there's no debris in it. I'm going to hand tighten this at first, then I'm going to use my adjustable wrench to tighten it up. Okay, now I'll repeat the same steps for the hot side. So now we're ready to flush our lines. For this step, you want to make sure you have a towel for any light water cleanup and a bucket to flush our lines into. I'm going to start with the cold side. I'm just going to put our line right into our bucket. I'll turn on the supply and let it run for about 30 seconds, and then we'll repeat the same steps for the hot side. Okay, now we'll repeat that same step for the hot side. Now we're going to connect our supply lines to our faucet. For this step, you want two adjustable wrenches. One to tighten the supply line and the other to hold the copper line in place. You don't want to twist those copper lines. Now I'm going to hand tighten these first, then I'll go back with my wrenches to give it a final tighten. Again, it's important to use two wrenches here. One to hold the copper line as you tighten the supply line because you don't want to twist that copper. Okay, now that I have that connected, I'm going to turn on my water supply and check for any leaks at all my connections. Okay, now we're going to check the functionality of the faucet. Turn it on to hot and cold. Move it around. That looks good. Now we're going to check for leaks at the base of the faucet and underneath the handle. And that looks good too. Guys, that wraps up our install. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Delta's customer service team. They're happy to help. Enjoy your new faucet.